5 years ago, the COVID-19 pandemic changed Australia and the world forever.
You're arresting someone for no reason.
What a country we live in now.
Yesterday, the Commission released its report titled Collateral Damage: What the Untold Stories from the COVID-19 Pandemic Reveal About Human Rights in Australia.
Seriously? One more comment about human rights, honestly.
Remember the hundreds of days in lockdown?
Melbourne's lockdown will total 267 days.
Mask mandates?
What? For a mask? For not having a mask?
Limits on how far you could travel from your home?
You can't travel more than 5 kilometres from your home.
Limits on how many times a day you could leave your home?
And everyone must be home by 8 p.m.
Limits on how much toilet paper you could buy?
1 pack.
And vax mandates so you could go to work and feed your family?
There's people that don't want this mandatory vaccine. How do we manage this?
Well, then they won't be going to work.
What about the small businesses who were forced to shut up shop?
Today, to start pull apart my business that I've worked so hard for, it brings us to tears.
While bottle-os, Bunnings and brothels stayed open.
The science has said that brothels are okay in Melbourne.
I don't need a report to tell me about the damage, despair and desperation left in the wake of Australia's response to the pandemic, because I've been listening to these untold stories, untold because so many were censored, for the past 5 years.
It was you, the Australian government, that forced me to have the shot. It was you that took away my rights to choose.
The upheaval causing anxiety, hopelessness, fear and incalculable economic repercussions may well be worse than the virus itself, with possible long-term and deep consequences. Look around our nation in the aftermath of the pandemic response and it's like looking at a train wreck of devastation for many everyday Australians. The human cost and suffering caused by our pandemic response continues to this day, and governments across the nations should be held accountable. What's the Commission doing about 40 unvaxxed fireys who are still refused the right to work due to COVID mandates?
All the other fire agencies around the country have dropped it, other than Fire Rescue Victoria.
What about the thousands of Australians whose lives have been ruined by vaccine injury?
Statistically, my daughter was unimportant. But Caitlin Gotts is not a statistic. She was a living, breathing, strong, intelligent, beautiful girl, and she mattered.
What about the punitive no jab, no pay policies which punish parents who want to make an informed decision to not vaccinate their children?
If somebody's saying, I'll pay you a couple of $1,000s to make a decision, you actually aren't making an informed decision based just on the science. The
Commission says the report is not about placing blame, but it absolutely should be.
We haven't actually acknowledged the harm that was caused. The focus on public health was important, but it came at the expense of everything else.
The Human Rights Law Centre has suggested the curfew might not be lawful under the Victorian Human Rights Charter, which requires restrictions to be reasonable and at the lowest level possible.
Well, I'd indicate to the Human Rights Law Centre that under a state of disaster, which is another act of the Victorian Parliament, those considerations are not the first ones.
Governments at all levels must be held to account for the pain and suffering and distress that's been perpetrated against the people of this great nation.
If an employer allows an unvaccinated staff member on site, they can be fined more than $21,000 and the business will be hit with almost a $110,000 fine.
Anyone making a selfish choice that they can protest, you can't.
In relation to a Facebook post, in relation to a lockdown protest.
It's not appropriate, it's not lawful.
Okay, they're shooting. They're now shooting.
This report from the Human Rights Commission is way too little, way too late. Authorised by Russell Broadbent MP, Independent Federal Member for Monash, 46C Albert Street, Warragul, Victoria 3820.